While rain is a very good thing, a storm can be a terrible thing. The aftermath of a hurricane or a tornado or even a strong windstorm can be an ugly sight. Tree limbs litter the streets, windows are shattered, cars overturned, roofs ripped off, and the streets are flooded. We have a saying, into each life some rain must fall, but it might be better to put it this way: into every life some storms will come. Rain, we desperately need. Storms, well, most of us feel we can do without them. In this study, we'll consider a few elements of storms, both meteorological and personal. Let's start with a simple and yet important feature of storms. They often arise suddenly. In the most famous storm of the New Testament, we read about the time Jesus and his disciples were caught in a violent storm on the Sea of Galilee. At a certain point, a pleasant boat trip turned into a life-threatening situation. The scriptures sum up what happened with these words: "A windstorm came down on the lake." Things had been looking good, all was peaceful, but somehow out of nowhere a major storm has arisen. Now, storms happen to all of us in one way or another. One moment our skies are blue, the sun is shining, all's well with the world. And within a very short time, the skies are black, the wind is howling, and the rains are pelting us. It might start with a phone call or an email. It may be a sudden terrible pain in our chest, or finding a clue that our spouse is unfaithful. It could begin with our boss calling us into his office and telling us we're being let go. Some way, somehow, our comfortable, secure status quo is shattered and a full-blown storm appears on the horizon of our lives. Now, if we had time to prepare for the storm, it wouldn't quite be so bad. We could have battened down the hatches. We could have saved more money, taken out more insurance, steeled ourselves for the blow. But instead, we were walking along life's highway, whistling a happy tune and assuming we had years of carefree living ahead. And now this. When fierce winds start destroying buildings, ripping off roofs, flooding homes, and uprooting trees, it's not much fun. Storms reveal our own impotence. No man, regardless of how rich, influential, or powerful, can stop a storm. Strong storms come with the potential for loss. What was the disciples' cry as they rushed to awaken Jesus? They said, "Master, Master, we are perishing." They looked at the nature of the sea, the force of the wind, and the size of the waves, and came to what seemed a very reasonable conclusion. They could well be dead in a short time. It is this very real possibility of loss that makes storms so scary. It is the nature of men and women to hold their blessings tightly, and storms come along threatening to rip these things right out of our hands. Most of us would prefer to live out our lives without experiencing fearful situations. Comfortable, relaxed days without pressure or the possibility of loss are so much more preferable. But God has determined that making our lives a non-stop, peaceful, carefree existence would not be healthy for us. In Romans we read, "And not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope." When they're handled well, tribulations and difficulties, in other words, storms, produce good things in our lives. They build character and make us more like Christ. We often say take it easy sometimes when we say goodbye to people, but in truth, if we take it too easy, too much of the time we'll begin to disintegrate. We need a few storms now and then where we're forced to exercise our faith. During storms, decisions must often be made in a hurry. Most of us would prefer to make our decisions in leisure, to have plenty of time to be able to think and pray and consider as we contemplate making major decisions that are going to significantly impact our lives. And generally speaking, that is the very best way to make decisions. But during storms, we often do not have the luxury of taking our time and making critical decisions. And we're frequently forced to make decisions on the fly without lengthy consideration or deliberation. And we must depend on God for wisdom during our crisis. Storms require faith. Yes, wisdom is important, but faith is even more important. What was it Jesus said to his disciples as they panicked and told him that they were going to perish soon? He asked, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" As long as Jesus rests in your boat, you can be sure that all is going to be well. Jesus Christ is God's designated storm stiller. The winds are fierce, but we look to the back of our boat and there is Jesus. The waves are splashing into the boat and the boat sinks lower and lower into the water. But again, we look back and still we see Jesus looking not the least bit concerned. Now, if we have any sense, we realize everything is gonna be okay. God will not allow his son to go down and perish in the storm. We notice that Jesus does allow the storm to go on for quite a while. We would prefer it if, when the wind first starts picking up, Jesus would immediately pop up and say, "I see a storm brewing. Let's just shut that down right now." But instead, he sleeps, giving all the appearance of being unaware and unconcerned. This is the test of faith. We hear no word from heaven. We see no vision. We have no dream. All we see is the violence of the waves. All we hear is the howling of the wind. And yet we believe. It wasn't wrong for the disciples to awaken Jesus. They weren't rebuked for waking him up. They were rebuked for their lack of faith that resulted in their panic when Jesus said, "Why are you so fearful?" Of course, Jesus finally did awaken. He did speak to the storm, and he did bring about perfect calm. And it didn't take much for him to do it. Just a word. How quickly God can bring our storms to an end once his purposes are accomplished. In the end, storms and our survival are all about foundations. In his teachings, Jesus spoke about a storm that came on two different houses, one built on a rock foundation and the other built upon sand. When the storm had passed, only the house built upon the rock was standing. The foundation we require for life in this uncertain world is revealed by the Apostle Paul, who writes, "For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ." With Jesus in our lives, we can face those storms with faith. The winds may howl, the waves may slam into our little boat, but our Savior is with us. We will not fear. I want to encourage you to join Benedict and me in our home through our new podcast, Discover the Word with Den and Ben. While you drive in your car or while you walk or exercise at the gym, you can be learning the Bible through our low-key, user-friendly Bible studies. To get the information you need to listen to our Discover the Word with Den and Ben podcast, click on the link in the description.